Hey guys, Croco here, and I'd like to welcome you to the first edition of Published Parallels. First, I'd like to thank you just for tuning in. It means the world to me to have people who are sincerely passionate in comics, anime, and pop culture just join me in examining how these mediums of entertainment relate. Oftentimes, we will see creators in a specific field find inspiration from within that medium, but the question that's been sitting on my mind for a while now is, does that inspiration travel into other mediums and expressions in the sci-fi universe? For example, what parallels can we identify within the comic world that have been inspired by an idea already explored in the anime world? Or how does a mangaka use pop culture references as motivation to build the manga and anime that we all know and love? A very common and knowledgeable example of this is in the relationship between Superman from DC Comics and Akira Toriyama's Goku in the Dragon Ball series. I wanted to start a channel discussing these things because I felt that there have already been so many YouTube channels that explain stories and origins or make mock battles between these mediums. But there hasn't really been a lot of channels that have tried to search for how these themes can relate, even if the relationship were purely out of coincidence. My goal in making this content will be to draw debate within the different communities and also educate someone who may be a fan of one side but is curious about the beauty and allure that exists on the other. Okay, now that we have established that, I would like to discuss what topic we'll be analyzing today. For this very first video, I thought it would be a good idea to analyze what comic book group or character is the parallel version of My Hero Academia's Nomu. I guess the best way to begin this analysis is by informing those of you who are unfamiliar with My Hero Academia on what exactly the series is and what part the Nomu play in the series. My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia, is a Japanese manga series created by Kohei Horikoshi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the story is about a world much like our own, but where most people possess superpowers known as quirks. In this story, it follows the transition period of Izuku Midoriya, a young boy who had no powers in this world of superhumans, until one day the greatest hero in the entire world, All Might, passes his powers on to him. I don't want to go too in-depth on explaining the plot of My Hero, but I will admit I am a huge fan. Despite basically everyone having powers, there's a lot of themes and ideas that are, well, relatable. Between the various moral decisions the main character faces, to the reasons why the villains even fight in the first place, to put it simple, My Hero does a great job of combining action with drama. But alright, let's get to the reason why you're even watching this video in the first place. Nomu. Nomu are genetically modified humans created by Dr. Ujiko, and with the help from the series' original antagonist All For One, but that's another story. Anyways, the Nomu's bodies are altered so that they can utilize multiple quirks. This transformation that the humans in question undergo makes them incredibly strong, as they were shown to rival even the strength of the world's greatest hero, All Might. But the cause for this in most cases is that they lose their ability to think for themselves. In most cases, the only thing they can do is that which Dr. Ujiko or All For One programmed them to do. This isn't always the case for the Nomu, as they're divided into 3 different levels. The lower 2 levels express this mindless quality, but the highest level has shown signs of intelligence, being able to freely think and talk. This quality of the highest level of Nomu isn't the only difference between the 3 levels of this species. As the Nomu climb in level, the capabilities and powers they possess increase as well. Some of these qualities include regeneration and the quantity of quirks they can hold. Also, the highest level of Nomu are very limited, as there are only 12 that are known to have been created. If you want more information on the Nomu, go check out Showbobs' page on them. He has a wonderful video in which he discusses it in way more detail than I'm giving it any justice, guys. Seriously, go check that out. It was really helpful in making this video. Okay, let's sum this up though. Genetically modified humans can possess multiple quirks, can rival strongest characters in series, separated into 3 strength levels and groups, created by a doctor, mindless for the most part and are designed to follow specific guidelines, and the high-end Nomu are limited in number. These are the qualities for the most part we are trying to find when finding the Nomu's comic book or pop culture counterpart. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When I started this and I decided to go with Nomu, I thought that it would be easy to find its parallel in a comic book. Between DC's Project Cadmus or Marvel's weapons program, surely there had to be a layered group of genetically modified humans, right? I mean, come on. You're telling me there hasn't been a team of Captain Americas and his genetic experiment brothers and sisters that have progressively gotten stronger with each iteration of the team? Okay, well, surely there's been a group of Superboys that have done that, right? No. No? Alright, back to square one, I guess. The first thing I did was see if I could find all of the genetically modified humans ever published in comics and then see if they at any point were a part of a team. Maybe that could get me to my answer. When that didn't work, I went to searching doctors and tried to see if they had creations that followed these guidelines. Some things looked like it could be promising, like Canada's Flight Team or the High Evolutionaries' New Men. But ultimately, the search under this criteria just became more and more inaccurate. From the Red Skull's S-Men to Eclipse Comics' DNA agents, the results were proving unsuccessful. I had to take a break when I got to the Broccoli Men. Yes, you heard me right, Broccoli Men. That is genetically modified kelp, and that was Marvel's doing. So any of the DC fanboys out there that want to say they have a one-up in creativity from Marvel, this might be your chance. Anyways, it still felt very promising originally. I mean, with the same genre of entertainment, the Nomu have a pretty fair parallel to Dr. Giro's creation. Outside of them being only genetically modified humans, there's 3 levels to Giro's creations. The power increased as you went up in these levels. The higher levels had more individual intelligence. They could also rival the series' greatest heroes. They were created by a scientist or doctor. Cells shared the same DNA between specific humans/creatures in the series. Albeit, it may not be perfect, but it'd be hard to argue that there isn't at least a parallel between Nomu and Dr. Giro's androids and Cell. The problem here is we're still in anime with this example, and what we want is a parallel in comics or pop culture. Then it happened. After hours of searching, I finally stumbled upon a link to Nomu, and it involved Marvel's Celestials. Now, this wasn't the answer I was expecting, but in the same way that the androids in Cell relate to My Hero's Nomu, the Celestials' first host tests relate as well. Alright, so let's do a quick background on who exactly the Celestials are and what this first host test business is all about. The Celestials are an alien race created by the very first universe to ever exist, which in Marvel is known as the First Firmament. There are 2 big differences between the Celestials created by the First Firmament. There are the ones who chose to be loyal to the first universe, who are referred to as the aspirants, and then there are the ones who chose to rebel from the first universe, the multicolored Celestial. There's the Celestial that we are specifically referring to for this topic. Now, once these multicolored Celestial gain their independence, creating the cosmos in the process, slight flex, but okay, right? They spent their time manipulating the various species that formed as a result of them defeating the First Firmament. The Celestials would have had a process for how they manipulated the species they encountered. Each step in this process was referred to as a host, and there were 4 hosts. So that this video isn't too long, I'm going to talk specifically about the first host, as that's the one that relates to this topic. During the first host, the Celestials select the dominant race of a planet and alter the genetic structure of that race into 3 races. A superior race referred to as Eternals, an unstable race referred to as Deviants, and then modify a specific gene in the original race that will surface as the race naturally evolves. This race became what is known as the mutants in the future. So basically everyone who knows the X-Men, this is where they originally were started, is from this first host experiment. Anyways, the Celestials have done this with various races, including the Kree, the Skrulls, and humans. The version most Marvel fans are familiar with, and is also the subject of the MCU's upcoming film Eternals, is the version of this event that happened on Earth with humans. Alright. So now that we know that, let's review and see exactly how they line up with My Hero Academia's Nomu. They are created by a scientist/doctor. Though the Celestials are technically more so gods than scientists and doctors in a traditional sense, they basically are like space scientists, as they are conducting experiments and their ships are even referred to as labs in the comics. To add to this, the Celestials have been given nicknames such as experimenters, analyzers, probers, and testers. Now, doesn't that more or less sound like the characteristics that you would give a scientist? I mean, let's think about it. That's basically what they do, right? Even doctors, this is some of the things that they have to do with their patients. So I think it's fair to say that between a scientist or a doctor, that's what they were, just a very early iteration of that, right? They are separated into three groups. As we stated earlier, the Celestials divided the race into the Eternals, the Deviants, and the humans with a modified gene. The next thing is they're mindless or designed to follow specific instructions. Now, I will admit, this is where it can get a little tricky, but if we look at it in a practical manner, the modified race's task was to simply evolve and grow. That's all the Celestials wanted to observe. So, in simply continuing to exist, they are essentially following their creator's instructions, albeit maybe not being completely mindless. The next thing that we need to check off of this list is genetically modified humans. In every deviation of the Celestials' test subjects, they all share the original race's genes at the base. Considering the Celestials performed these experiments on humans as well, this is true for Earth's first host test. And that's a very, very crucial point that I want us to remember. The next thing is that the superior form is limited in number. Though this wasn't the case when the Celestials initially created these genetic deviations, the Eternals on Earth over time became a very limited group as a result of wars and divisions. According to Marvel's fandom page, there are only about 1,000 Eternals that exist today. Now you pair this up with maybe not the Deviants, but the lowest level, or at least what was supposed to be considered the lowest levels in the mutants. Before the House of Imavin, there was a bunch of mutants. I mean, it was a dormant gene that existed in countless humans that we knew up until that point. We had an idea as teams like the X-Men, and where even before that, Apocalypse kind of came into the picture, but there was a lot of mutants, a lot more than 1,000 originally. Moving on to the last point, can they rival the strongest characters? In the Marvel Universe, the Eternals are worshipped as God. Azorius, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that right, has power that's comparable to that of the Olympian god Zeus. Azora, whose name I believe is Athena, I'm not sure, but her power was comparable to the Olympian god Athena. Thanos, who possesses deviant genes, had enough power to go toe-to-toe with the Incredible Hulk, and Franklin Richards, who possessed the modified evolved gene, also known as the X gene, also known as the mutants, had such incredible power, he was able to make Galactus his hero. Now I will admit, I was expecting to find something that could line up perfectly, but honestly, in anything, when do you really get that result? Despite those aspirations though, it is undeniable to see that there are clear parallels between anime's Nomu and the comic book's first host experiments. Ultimately, I'm pretty satisfied with this conclusion, because I did at least get an answer. But what do you think? If you agree, let me know why. If you disagree and think there's a group that can relate even better than the example I used, I would love to hear from you too. Again, one of my goals in starting this channel is to open up debate amongst the people in this community. I'm simply opening the door with published parallels. Thank you again for watching this video. I hope that I entertained you. And if you enjoyed this series, check out our podcast videos, which talks more about these same topics and more. Also, hit that little bell up there if you want any notifications on any time we post another video. And outside from that, again, if you enjoyed this video as much as I hope that you did, just click that subscribe button so you can get more.